Let's get real. When you go silent, does he lose interest or does he start craving you more? The truth? It depends on the kind of man you're dealing with and where he is emotionally. But here's what almost no one tells you. Silence isn't just a turn on or a turn off. It's a mirror. It reflects his true emotional investment in you. If he's emotionally immature or using you for validation, your silence will feel like a threat, and he might pull away completely. He'll label you difficult, cold, or even toxic. Why? Because your silence disrupts his comfort zone. It forces him to face his own emotional avoidance. But if he has real feelings for you, if you've made an emotional imprint, your silence becomes magnetic. It creates mystery. It builds tension. And tension creates desire. In male psychology, silence can activate the reward center of the brain, the same one triggered by uncertainty and challenge. That's why men often become more attracted to the woman who isn't always available. But here's the nuance. It's not the silence alone. It's the energy behind it. If you're going quiet to punish him or play games, he'll sense it. But if your silence comes from self-respect, from choosing peace over chasing, he'll feel that too. And that's when silence becomes a turn-on. So, is silence powerful? Absolutely. But only when it's rooted in authentic detachment, not fear, not manipulation. Coming up next, we'll break down exactly when men start to miss you, and the emotional stages they go through once you pull back. So here's the real question. When you go silent, when you stop texting him, stop checking in, stop making the effort, is that a turn-off, or does it make him want you more? The truth is, silence doesn't automatically do either. It all depends on the emotional dynamic between you two. And most importantly, the energy behind your silence. For some men, silence is deeply unsettling, especially if they've been relying on your presence, your validation, or your emotional labor without truly investing in the relationship. When you go quiet, it interrupts their comfort. It removes that steady stream of attention they've gotten used to, and suddenly they're left with a version of reality where you're no longer revolving around them. That's when the panic starts. Not always because they value you, but because they're losing control. But for others, especially men who feel something real for you, silence triggers something entirely different. It creates curiosity. It makes them wonder, did I mess up? Is she moving on? Has she finally had enough? That space you create by going silent gives him the emotional room to reflect. And in that space, something powerful happens. He begins to realize what your presence actually meant to him. But here's the catch. It's not just silence that creates this effect. It's the intention behind it. If your silence is full of anxiety, if you're waiting by your phone, hoping it makes him chase you, he'll feel that energy. Even if you say nothing, your silence still carries a frequency. And if that frequency feels like punishment or manipulation, it will come across as emotionally unsafe. But when your silence is rooted in peace, when it comes from a place of self-worth, of protecting your energy, of no longer chasing someone who isn't showing up, that's when silence becomes magnetic. Because now, you're not trying to get him to do anything. You're just existing in your truth. You're no longer available for confusion, no longer performing for approval. You've exited the emotional transaction, and that shift is powerful. To a man who's emotionally connected to you, that kind of silence is a wake-up call. It reminds him that you're not an option, that your access is earned, not entitled, that you're not afraid to walk away if your needs aren't being met. And to a man who values you, that's not a turn-off, that's an invitation to step up. So is silence a turn-on or a turn-off? The real answer is, it's a mirror. It shows him exactly where he stands with you, and whether or not he's willing to rise to the version of you that no longer chases, explains, or overextends. Coming up next, we're diving into the timeline, when men actually start missing you once you've gone silent, and the surprising moment that usually triggers it. Let's talk about something that confuses and frustrates a lot of women. When a man starts to emotionally pull away, everything seems to be going fine, maybe even amazing, and then all of a sudden he becomes distant. His messages slow down. He seems distracted, less engaged. You start asking yourself, did I do something wrong? But here's the truth. This isn't always about you. Understanding why men detach emotionally is key to knowing how to respond. And more importantly, what not to take personally. Male detachment isn't always about disinterest. Often it's a coping mechanism. It's his default setting when emotions start to get too intense, too vulnerable, or too real. Many men have been conditioned, consciously or not, to associate emotional vulnerability with weakness. From a young age, they're taught to stay in control, suppress feelings, and not need anyone. So when they begin to develop genuine emotional feelings, especially for a woman who brings depth and intimacy into their life, that emotional intensity can feel unsafe. It triggers internal conflict. On one hand, he's drawn to it. On the other, he's afraid of what it demands from him. Presence, honesty, and vulnerability. So what does he do? He detaches. He pulls away, often without warning. It can look cold, confusing, and even heartless from the outside. But from the inside, he's protecting himself from emotions he doesn't fully understand or know how to express. It's not always about rejection. Sometimes it's about fear. That's why your silence can be such a powerful mirror for him. Because when you stop reaching out, when you stop trying to fix the distance, when you stop chasing clarity, he's left alone with his own thoughts. And in that space, he has to confront something real. The consequences of emotional avoidance. Now, let me be clear, this doesn't mean you wait around hoping he figures it out. Your silence isn't about waiting. It's about witnessing. Witnessing whether he has the emotional capacity to meet you where you are, whether he leans in when things get uncomfortable, or runs. The psychology behind male detachment also involves control. When a man feels emotionally overwhelmed, pulling away is how he reclaims a sense of emotional control. It helps him feel safe again. But here's the catch. A man who's emotionally mature will come back differently. He won't ghost, then return like nothing happened. He'll acknowledge the space. He'll take responsibility. He'll try to re-establish a real connection, not just attention. But a man who's emotionally unavailable, he'll come back only when he needs another hit of validation. And when he gets it, he'll disappear again. That's why you can't chase him during the detachment phase. Because your pursuit doesn't pull him closer. It confirms that you'll stay, even when he emotionally abandons you. That's not love, that's imbalance. What happens next, whether he comes back, whether he grows or whether he stays detached, depends entirely on his level of emotional readiness. Coming up, we're diving into what most women want to know next. How long it actually takes for a man to start missing you after you've gone silent, and what signs to watch for. When you go silent, the question that starts spinning in your mind is simple. When is he going to notice? When is he going to miss me? But the reality is, men don't usually feel your absence right away. Especially if they've gotten used to you being emotionally available, showing up, checking in, or always making the effort. At first, your silence doesn't register as a loss. It registers as space. And for some men, space initially feels like relief. If things were tense, complicated, or emotionally intense, he might convince himself that silence is a break, a reset. He assumes you'll eventually reach back out. That's been the pattern before. But here's what actually happens over time. In the first few days, maybe 2, maybe 5, there's very little movement on the surface. He might not text, he might even act unfazed, but the absence of your energy is starting to shift something subtle in him. He's not getting the dopamine hit your presence used to bring. He's not getting the emotional stability you once offered. He's not hearing from you, and though he may not admit it, that silence becomes noticeable. Not painful yet, just different. Around day 7, that's when curiosity starts creeping in. He wonders what you're doing, why you haven't reached out. He might check your social media. He might check the time, remembering when you'd usually message him. His brain starts scanning for you, not because he misses the conversation necessarily, but because he misses the consistency, the connection, the comfort, and he's no longer receiving it. Then by the second week, things begin to shift emotionally. That's when the silence turns into actual discomfort. If there was a real connection, this is when he starts missing your presence, the little things, the way you made him feel, the way you brought lightness, depth, warmth into his life. It's not about missing your text. It's about missing who he was when he was with you. That's when regret can start to form, even if he doesn't act on it yet. The ego might hold him back, or pride, or even confusion about how to re-engage. By week 3, if you've stayed silent and grounded in your power, something important happens. He realizes this isn't temporary, that you're not just giving him space, you've created distance, and that distance has weight. That's when men start replaying moments, wondering what went wrong, questioning if they pushed you too far. The longer your silence lasts, and the more peaceful and confident you appear during it, the more potent it becomes. That's when the missing shifts into longing. But here's the catch. If you break silence too early, you reset the clock. You interrupt that emotional buildup. Missing you isn't about time passing. It's about the meaning he attaches to your absence. And that takes space, stillness, and your willingness to hold the line. Let's talk about one of the most misunderstood dynamics in dating. The chase. More specifically, why silence, when it's real and grounded, often makes a man chase you in ways that words never could. Now, it's important to start with this. Not all silence triggers the chase. It's not about going quiet just to provoke a reaction. Men can feel that kind of manipulation, but when your silence is genuine, when it's based in self-respect rather than strategy, it changes the emotional chemistry between you. And that shift is what ignites pursuit. See, when a man senses that your world no longer revolves around him, when he no longer feels like he has automatic access to your time, your energy, your softness, it triggers something instinctual. There's a part of his brain wired for challenge and pursuit. That part only activates when he feels like something meaningful could be slipping away, especially if he knows he took it for granted. Your silence isn't just quiet, it's disruptive. It removes him from the emotional position of comfort and control. And when comfort is gone, curiosity comes in. Curiosity leads to reflection, and reflection leads to action. If he actually cares. What silence also does is create contrast. When you were present, texting, calling, emotionally available, he got used to it, maybe even bored of it. He stopped valuing what was consistent. But silence is absence, and absence creates contrast. That contrast makes him remember what it felt like to have you, not just physically, but emotionally. Your attention, your encouragement, your loyalty, your vibe. That kind of connection doesn't just disappear without leaving a mark. And if you were real with him, if you were good to him, that silence starts to echo in all the places you used to fill. The chase doesn't begin the moment you go quiet. It begins the moment he realizes you're not doing what you always did. You're not filling in the gaps. You're not rescuing the connection. You're not trying to fix things or hold space for two. And that quiet forces him to either let go or step up. And when a man chooses to step up, it's not random. It's because your silence gave him room to miss you, room to desire, room to feel. And that feeling is what turns hesitation into pursuit. But again, it only works when the silence is authentic. If you're sitting in silence while still emotionally chasing him in your thoughts, checking your phone every 5 minutes, hoping he breaks first, that energy still reaches him. Men can't always articulate it, but they can feel when you're still emotionally available. True silence is peaceful. It's clean. It says, I'm here if you come correct, but I'm not chasing, begging, or performing for your attention. That's what makes it powerful. That's what makes him chase. So you've gone silent, given him space, held your ground, and now you're waiting. But days pass, maybe even weeks, and he still hasn't reached out. What now? What if he never does? This is one of the hardest places to be emotionally because it forces you to face some uncomfortable truths. But it's also a moment filled with clarity, empowerment, and freedom, if you're willing to see it that way. First, it's important to understand that him not reaching out doesn't automatically mean rejection of you. Sometimes it means he's not ready. Emotionally unavailable men often shut down when faced with real emotional depth. Silence, instead of being a wake-up call, triggers their defense mechanism. They retreat further. That's not on you. That's about his own emotional capacity and readiness. You can't control or fix that. If he doesn't reach out, it could also mean he's comfortable with the status quo, where he gets the emotional supply without having to truly show up. In that case, your silence might be a boundary that calls for change he's unwilling or unable to make. Again, this isn't about you failing, it's about his limits. Now here's the key. Not reaching out is actually a gift. It's a gift of truth. It's a clear signal of where you stand in his emotional hierarchy and what you deserve. It gives you the power to stop hoping, stop chasing, and redirect your energy to someone who meets you with the same level of care, respect, and effort. So many women stay stuck in the silence, replaying every text, wondering if one more message or one more apology could bring him back. But that only prolongs pain and confusion. The real healing and growth happen when you accept that his silence is a reflection of his limits, not your worth. This moment is also a chance to reclaim your identity outside of the relationship dynamic, to rebuild your life around your needs, desires, and passions, not his responses. When you stop waiting for him, you open space for your own joy and growth. It's okay to feel sad, disappointed, or even angry. Those emotions are valid and necessary. But don't let them trap you in the illusion that he will eventually come around if you just wait long enough. Sometimes the person you're waiting for never arrives, and that's a painful but powerful truth to face. If he doesn't reach out, it's your invitation to close this chapter fully, to say goodbye to what was, without bitterness or regret, and to move forward with grace. Your silence wasn't a game or a test. It was a boundary that revealed his real level of investment. Now you have the choice to invest your heart and energy where it's truly wanted and valued. Coming up next, we'll talk about how to move on gracefully and rebuild your confidence after silence, no matter how he responds or doesn't. When it comes to emotional triggers, many men experience feelings they rarely admit, sometimes even to themselves. Society often teaches men to hide vulnerability, making it hard for them to openly express what truly affects them beneath the surface. Understanding these hidden triggers gives you insight into his behavior, especially when he becomes distant or unresponsive. One of the biggest emotional triggers is feeling ignored or unimportant. Even if he doesn't say it, when you pull away or go silent, it can strike deep. For many men, consistent communication equals connection and care. When that suddenly stops, it can make him feel rejected or invisible. Instead of sharing this pain, he may withdraw or act out in frustration as a defense mechanism. Another powerful trigger is feeling powerless or out of control. Men often identify with being problem solvers and protectors. When emotions become unclear or unpredictable, like when you create space by going silent, it challenges their sense of control. Instead of admitting confusion, he might shut down, become defensive, or push back to regain his footing emotionally. Criticism and judgment can also set off alarms. Even constructive feedback can sting, especially if he ties his self-worth to how well he provides or performs in the relationship. When he senses disapproval, it can trigger feelings of inadequacy or failure. This often leads him to retreat emotionally, avoiding vulnerability to protect his ego. Fear of vulnerability itself is a major unspoken trigger. Men might hesitate to reveal their deeper feelings because they fear rejection or appearing weak. Your silence creates uncertainty, a space where he wonders what you're thinking or feeling, and that can be terrifying. The unknown pushes him to either pull away or build walls, not because he doesn't care, but because vulnerability feels risky. Lastly, feeling misunderstood or unheard strikes a deep chord. If he feels his emotions aren't validated or he can't express himself honestly, he's likely to close off further. This emotional shutdown isn't disinterest but a protective response to feeling emotionally unsafe. Recognizing these triggers allows you to look past surface behaviors and see what's really going on inside him. When he distances himself, it's often a sign of inner struggle rather than a reflection of your value or the relationship's potential. With this understanding, you can approach the situation with more empathy, while also protecting your own emotional boundaries. Staying grounded while you're silent isn't always easy, especially when your mind starts racing with what-ifs and doubts. Silence can feel like stepping into a void, a place where uncertainty lives and your emotions might swirl unpredictably. But the truth is, grounding yourself during this time is the secret to holding your power, maintaining your peace, and ultimately creating the emotional clarity you need. The first step to staying grounded is to shift your focus inward. When you stop reaching out, your instinct might be to constantly check your phone or replay conversations in your head, hoping for a sign or a message. Instead, redirect that energy toward yourself. This means tuning into your own needs, desires, and emotions without judgment. Ask yourself, what do I really want? What do I need to feel whole? Grounding starts with reconnecting to your own center, not his reaction. Next, practice self-care in all its forms. This isn't just about bubble baths or pampering, although those can help. It's about honoring your physical, emotional, and mental well-being consistently. Eating nourishing food, getting enough rest, moving your body through exercise or walks, and allowing yourself to feel your emotions fully, without suppressing them. These are powerful ways to stay anchored. When your body feels cared for, your mind becomes more stable. Another key to grounding is setting clear intentions for your silence. Know why you're doing it, and remind yourself regularly. Are you seeking clarity, respect, emotional space? Holding a firm intention gives you strength. When doubts creep in, write it down, repeat it, or meditate on it. This helps prevent the silence from becoming a lonely or fearful place, and instead turns it into a space of empowerment and self-respect. It's also important to stay connected to your support system. Silence doesn't mean isolation. Reach out to friends, family, or a therapist who can remind you of your value and keep your perspective balanced. Talking things out with people who care about you can ground your thoughts and emotions, preventing you from spiraling into negative patterns. Mindfulness and breathing exercises are simple yet profound tools to stay present. When anxiety or impatience rise, pause and take deep, intentional breaths. This practice centers your nervous system and calms your mind. The more you practice being present, the less you'll get lost in the stories your mind creates about the silence. Lastly, stay busy with activities that bring you joy and fulfillment outside of the relationship. Pursue hobbies, focus on work or personal goals, learn something new, anything that ignites your passion. When your life feels full on your terms, silence stops feeling like deprivation and starts feeling like a choice you made for your own well-being. Remember, staying grounded while silent isn't about waiting passively. It's about actively choosing peace, clarity, and self-love. It's holding space for yourself to grow stronger and more resilient. When you stay grounded, your silence becomes a powerful tool, not just for the relationship, but for your personal growth and confidence. As we come to the final moments of this video, it's important to take a deep breath and remind yourself that silence isn't the end. It's a beginning. Whether you've chosen silence to create space, protect your boundaries, or gain clarity, this pause holds powerful potential. What happens next is entirely in your hands, and that's where your true strength lies. First, remember that silence isn't about punishment or games. It's about honoring yourself. It's about showing up for your own needs first, and that's something every healthy relationship requires. If your silence leads to him stepping up and chasing, that's a bonus, not the goal. The real goal is your peace and confidence. If he doesn't reach out, that's a clear message to keep moving forward without regret or doubt. Now, what should you do next? Start by reflecting on what you've learned about yourself and your relationship during this time. What patterns have you noticed? What boundaries became clearer? Use these insights to set standards that serve your happiness and emotional well-being. Next, continue focusing on your personal growth. Invest time and energy into your passions, goals, and self-care. When you're grounded in your own life, you're far less likely to feel desperate or lost, waiting on someone else. You become magnetic because you're whole on your own. If you feel ready, and if it feels right, you can consider opening the door for honest communication. But only do this if you're coming from a place of strength, not neediness. Express your feelings clearly and calmly, without blaming or demanding. Sometimes honest conversations help both people understand where they stand. Other times they confirm what you already sensed, and that clarity is invaluable. Above all, trust yourself. Trust your instincts, your worth, and your journey. Silence gives you a rare opportunity to reset the emotional balance, reclaim your power, and choose relationships that truly honor you. Remember, your value isn't determined by his actions or responses. It's determined by how you treat yourself. So whatever happens next, stand tall, stay grounded, and keep moving forward with confidence. Thank you for watching. If this video helped you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need it. Your next chapter is waiting, and it's going to be amazing.